Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Stream Raiders informative video. In this video, we're going to discuss armored units and how they work and what to specialize them into. I figured I would make some videos like this for people who are interested in learning how to play the game more, because I know that when I found out this information, it made playing the game a lot more fun, and it's really useful to know, especially in game modes like PvP and dungeons. So I'm going to go into each of these units and tell you how they work. Each unit can be specialized when it hits level 20. This specialization gives them an extra boost. You get 3 choices, and generally, so far, of these 3 choices, there's only one that is really relevant and really useful for practically every single unit, and I'll go into those and why. Do note that Stream Raiders is actively updating the game, and they have recently mentioned that they might make changes to specializations. If any of the specializations I mention are altered in a way that make them irrelevant or not as beneficial, I will make subsequent videos going into best specs and why for the updates. But so far, we have no information on what will be updated other than in the far future, there may be an update to specializations. Let's get started with our tank unit. You start out with the tank as one of your very first units. It is a common unit. It has high HP and it doesn't deal a lot of damage. Tanks eat damage, especially against amassed ranged enemies. Tanks are weak to melee. Your next armored unit is your Paladin. This is an uncommon armored unit. The unit doesn't have range resistance like your tank and Cent, but it does have melee resistance and has an increased healing compared to the tank and Centurion. So if you place your Paladin, it does really well against amassed melee units. Your Centurion is your rare armored unit. This unit has increased range resistance and buffs your other armored units to have a range resistance as well. The best specializations for all 3 of these units is going to be your heavy specialization. These units are meant to eat damage, and the heavy spec allows them to eat more damage than they already do. They're not the units that get kills, they are the units that protect your other units while your other units get killed. Or get kills. The Breacher, Duelist, and Brutal specs for each of these units gives them a damage boost to other armored enemies, specifically armored enemies. This is just not useful. It's a tiny boost, and armored units just aren't meant to be dealing damage. In respect to the Martyr, Champion, and Master specs for each of these units, the Martyr spec is bad because it means that your armor is dying. Your armor should not be dying. If your armor's dying, the rest of your units are probably dying too. You don't want your armor to die. And Champion and Master seem viable, but they don't do a lot to help, making heavy spec the most useful. Just heavy spec, please. I hate seeing Breacher spec. I hate seeing Martyr. I don't want to see it. I want to see everything heavy. We want them thick boys. We want thick. All right, heavy spec. So we're going to talk about the Vampire. I literally want to hiss right now. I'm like... A Vampire is an armored unit. It's the most recently released armored unit. It flies, and it's meant to do well in a large group of vampires. In theory, this sounds awesome. I was so excited when they announced the Vampire. Unfortunately, it does not quite work out as well as it was described, because vampires are super squishy compared to every other armored unit. They are so squishy and very quickly die when facing amassed range enemies, because they are flying slowly to those ranged enemies and they just get popped off. Super quack is like... Vampires do well against amassed melee enemies. They do well against enemies that they can kill quickly. And that is because they deal a good bit of damage. They're almost like a hybrid melee armor unit. So when they're epic, they're okay. I hate to say that. They're okay, but they're just not that great of a unit in comparison to many other units in this game. For viewer's side, your best specialization for a vampire is the Bloodlust specialization. It gives the vampire increased movement speed after killing an enemy, increased healing, and a small increase in its range. I think it's 0.3. This is really good when it is able to kill enemies. So when you're using it against those melee enemies or rogue enemies or things like that that they can kill in a hit or two, it is just a lesser unit in comparison to the rest of your armored units, or even in comparison to melee units. Maybe it'll get a buff someday, I don't know. And then let's go into our legendary armored unit, the Orc Slayer. This unit sounds pretty pretty savage, but it's kind of debatable. The Orc Slayer has a little more HP in exchange for less range damage reduction, and it has AoE when it attacks, which is cool. It deals 100% bonus damage to orcs, and how often are you going up against orc enemies? Not all the time, so it's an okay unit. Yeah, the 100% damage boost is generally just less damage than a ranger melee unit, so it's just not that great. If you manage to get your Orc Slayer to level 20, which people are recently with a lot of these legendary scrolls going out, you want to specialize it into your Rampaging spec, which gives it a larger AoE and 300% bonus damage against orcs. To close this video out, your best armored unit, in my opinion, and arguably actually, is your Paladin. A Paladin is just such a strong unit. It has probably one of the lowest power costs and is useful at low levels. If you epic a level 1 Paladin, it still has so much HP and a good deal of damage. It's a great unit. I hope this video helped you understand how these units work, and I hope that this just helps you in general figure out your specializations. If you like this content and want to learn more, please leave your leave your thoughts down below in the comments. I will be making more videos specific to each kind of unit, and those will be coming out shortly. Please don't place vampires in my battles.